What is the single most defining trait of your personality that makes you who you are, that if taken away would rob you of your identity completely? That is a question Algis Budrys asks in his 1958 sci-fi novel, Who? This is my first foray in Budrys' writing, and I like it a lot more than Simek so far with my limited experience. And as always, I'm going to delve into it enough just to entice you to read it, but I'm not going to spoil it. So Martino is an engineer working for the US government on a top secret project called K-88. And at this point, we don't know what K-88 is. All we know is that there has been an explosion in the lab, and Martino has gone missing. This is because the Soviet emergency crews were the first to make it to Martino, and so he has been pulled into their sphere. There has been all this like Allied pressure to have him returned, and finally, after weeks and weeks, a man walks over the Soviet territory and back into the Allied sphere. But there's a problem. His entire head is encased in this stainless steel ball. Like he has a synthetic skull, and not only that, his face, all of his sensory organs are replaced by mechanical counterparts. So his eyes, his ears, his nose, all of these things. Keep in mind, this is before DNA evidence was like a common way of identifying people. There are no databases in that regard. And so all of the info that the US government has on Martino is not sufficient. It's all completely useless in identifying him. So they have no idea if this is really him or not. But because they also can't prove that it isn't him, they decide not to imprison him, because they could be imprisoning an innocent man who's already devoted his life to the US government. But they also forbid him not only on working on K-88. They're not going to allow him to come back and work on his pet project, the thing that he originated. But he's actually not allowed to work on any sort of engineering projects whatsoever. And this is a shock to him. This is a shock to him. And we don't know if it's Martino. We don't. As the reader, you want to believe that this is him. And so does a man named Rogers, who is tasked with proving whether or not it's Martino or a Soviet spy meant to impersonate Martino. And he does this because he can't prove this physically. He does this by building a profile on Martino's history, building a profile on who Martino was as a man, and then watching the cyborg's actions and seeing if they at all are consistent to what Martino, the man, would do in those given circumstances. So at this point, the cyborg is released, and he goes to New York, which is where Martino had lived for a long period of his life as a young adult. And the unfortunate aspect of this is that Martino had no living family or relatives, and he also had no friends or acquaintances. So he's coming back to New York with zero connections whatsoever. And to top it all off, engineering was the core defining trait of who Martino was. And so without that, it is incredibly difficult for both Rogers and the reader to designate whether or not this is him, because there are very few instances where engineering was not a variable in his life. So as you're reading through this, your theories as a reader are going to flip back and forth all the way throughout the entire novel. You'll think you have it figured out. Right now, you probably have a theory, and I'm telling you, you're probably wrong. It's a really, really great story that I highly recommend that you check out if you're given the chance. It's very narrative heavy. Here's an important quote. "It's been a bad time," he thought, as he stepped through the gate. "But I haven't lost anything." And that will build in significance as you go through this novel, the more you learn about it. So there's also a bit of a romance subplot to this novel, and Edith Chester is this girl from Martino's past that you learn about in these flashbacks, but you also have the cyborg revisiting her, and in the flashbacks she's this very shy girl, but in the present she's the wisest character by far. She has some incredibly profound insights, some things that she says that will keep with you, these bombs of epiphany that I can only really compare to Inverted World by Christopher Priest. And if you know anything about my past videos here or how I rank things, that one's like on the very top. So I think that the fact that he was able to do this, that Algis Budrys was able to pull this off within 200 pages is incredible. And you know what else is 200 pages? Lethal Circuit by this guy right here, my debut science fiction novel. I'm gonna stop bugging you guys about that at some point, but not right now. There is also this idea explored in the novel about education, a critique on education that rings more true today than ever before, by a lot. And the critique is that people learn like text verbatim. They learn like the direct answer to the question that they know they're going to be asked. And so because of that, people learn 100% based on memorization. So they have no new ideas. There is no like actual like constructive critical learning occurring. It's literally just like copy pasting. Like we're just really like we're like low efficiency robots. We're low efficiency cyborgs. And Martino, as we learn about his history, about his past, we find that he is like the polar opposite of this. He's obsessed, like as an engineer, he has to know how things work. And because he has to know how things work, he will begin failing in his classes as he refuses to move on to the next subject, as he refuses to move on to the next thing. He has to understand what he's learning right at that moment before he moves on. So his grades go from like the bottom of the class to the top of the class and just like ping-ponging like crazy, just back and forth, back and forth. And I felt like that was just gorgeous because, I mean, I don't know about your guys' experience, but my experience with school has been somewhat similar, where any sort of like enthusiasm that I have with the content that we're being taught just doesn't really like link into the overall tempo and the pacing of what's occurring. Like you're given like this very surface level understanding of just about anything. You move on to the next thing and then it's out of your head. It's gone forever. And a lot of teachers I've spoken to over the years feel very bitter about this. Understandably so, because they're in that profession to make a difference, to have people move forward and experience some progression. But they're just like, especially it's not even talking about AI at this point. Now consider AI in that regard, and people are just literal copy-paste machines where they can't even do the copy-pasting on their own anymore. And I think most of all with this novel, it got me to ask the question, what makes me Colin Steller? What makes you, you? What are the defining traits that, if taken away, would erase our identities? For instance, I have all these like projects that I'm always working on that I'm not doing for any sort of response. Many times I get zero response, and that doesn't alter just how obsessed I am with these things. And what I have come to after reading this book, I couldn't fall asleep. I was just like, staring at the ceiling and thinking about a lot of the concepts brought up in this and some of the stuff that Edith Chester said. And what I came to is that when you stop, that's when you lose yourself. When you stop, that's when you lose yourself.